Every year, many tons of cocaine are smuggled into the port of Gioia Tauro in Italy's Calabria region. The illegal drugs trade has made the Ndrangheta rich and powerful. It's now one of the most feared mafia groups in the world.
They can buy up half of Europe. They invest in shares, buy up important companies. They bribe politicians and officials into working for them. And that means everyone is at risk.
But the judiciary in Calabria is fighting back with the largest mafia trial in 3 decades, aimed at stopping the rise of the Ndrangheta. Regional Chief Prosecutor Nicola Gratteri spent years preparing the case for trial. It's being held in the Calabrian town of Lemezia. Gratteri has dedicated his life to fighting the mafia.
We felt it was especially important to arrest members of the Mancuso family, as they're the most dangerous. The number of arrests has been impressive. We have more than 450 suspects. We've achieved a breakthrough and are now further along in our fight against the Ndrangheta than ever before.
The so-called Maxi Trial began in January and is expected to last 2 years. A huge warehouse has been converted into a fortified courtroom, or bunker. The trial involves 600 lawyers. More than 900 witnesses are due to testify. The list of charges is long: murder, arms trafficking, drug smuggling, money laundering, extortion, and more. The defendants, a group that includes politicians and officials, are all from the province of Vibo Valentia. Prosecutor Nicola Gratteri has been under police protection day and night for more than 30 years. He hasn't been to the movies in 3 decades. He can't go to a restaurant or take a walk. The risk of being killed by the Ndrangheta is just too great.
You have to take a sensible approach to death, rationalize it. You have to convince yourself that what you're doing is worthwhile. Then you have the strength to carry on. You can't be afraid of death. You have to be rational and cool. Understand that you're in the right. Thousands of people believe in you. You're their last hope.
When the trial opened in mid-January in the Ndrangheta heartland of Calabria, it was Gratteri's biggest success to date. The defendants were rounded up in late 2019 in coordinated raids involving 3,000 police officers. The police arrested more than 350 people, seized 15 million euros worth of goods, and shut down dozens of businesses. Law enforcement agencies in Switzerland, Germany, and Bulgaria were also involved. Gratteri ordered the arrest of politicians, lawyers, business leaders, and crucially, members of the Mancuso clan. The family dominates the leadership of the Ndrangheta in this area. They serve as the linchpin in the cocaine trade between Latin America and Europe. Clan boss Luigi Mancuso and his business affiliates are accused of infiltrating all levels of power in Vibo Valentia, dealing with opponents with breathtaking brutality.
They demonstrate their power through murder. And they don't just kill, they use extremely brutal methods. Anyone who makes a mistake or is disrespectful in their eyes gets beaten senseless and has their livelihood destroyed. Everything they interpret as a lack of respect or damaging to their interests provokes a swift response that far outweighs any disadvantage they may have suffered.
In recent decades, 170 innocent victims have been murdered at the hands of the Ndrangheta in Calabria. The small town of Laureana di Borriello is no exception. That was where Vincenzo Kindamo's sister lived. She disappeared 5 years ago. It's clear she was murdered, but her body has never been found. The entire family is still traumatized by what happened.
For a while, I couldn't even come to my shop to work. I couldn't bear to look people in the eye because I was afraid I might be looking into the eye of my sister's murderer. And with every handshake, I thought I might be touching the hands of my sister's murderer.
Maria was a widow. Now Vincenzo, his wife, and his mother are bringing up her 3 children.
We just couldn't believe that something so terrible could happen to Maria, that someone would attack her and even take away the body, which is what the Ndrangheta clans do. Maria never had anything to do with the mafia.
Maria was successful and outgoing, part of a well-respected local family. She went to university, got married, had 3 children, and founded a small agricultural business. Then came her shocking death. Vincenzo drives us to where she used to have her business. On that fateful day 5 years ago, one of Maria's employees found her empty car here and immediately called Vincenzo.
I rushed straight over here and arrived less than 10 minutes later. Maria's car was right there, almost next to this one. It was full of blood. The engine was running, and there was blood on the ground too. It was obvious Maria had been the victim of a brutal attack. Since then, there's been no trace of her.
The police arrived with a forensics team, questioned the neighbors, seized the car, and recorded all the evidence.
That house on the other side of the road is equipped with a security system that has a camera pointing this way. It should have recorded everything, but the Carabinieri discovered that on that particular morning the system wasn't working.
Vincenzo still doesn't know what happened to Maria. The police launched an investigation and searched the entire area. One suspect was arrested, but later released due to insufficient evidence. So when the trial began in Lemezia, Vincenzo hoped he might learn something. Over the past 50 years, the Ndrangheta has steadily expanded its base in Calabria. Authorities in the capital, Catanzaro, are now hoping to at least liberate the province of Vibo Valentia, the area controlled by the Mancuso family. Here, the local authorities were heavily infiltrated by the Ndrangheta. Nicola Gratteri has been tireless in his investigations. He reached a deal with 60 key witnesses who agreed to testify to avoid a life sentence in prison.
The Mancuso family dominated this area. They controlled all economic activity here. They bought votes and influenced local and regional elections. Within their territory, they infiltrated all areas of daily activity, economic, political, and social. They view the entire province of Vibo Valentia as their property.
The Mancuso family is part of the Ndrangheta's governing body, known as the Crimine. It controls and coordinates all Ndrangheta cells worldwide.
The rules of the Ndrangheta are the same all over the world. They just copy them. It's like a brand. They have a structure that's divided into territories, called locale. That's copied too. If they set up a new one somewhere, they follow the same principle. It's like a franchise, whether it's Frankfurt, Duisburg, Zurich, Vienna, or New York. It's the same everywhere.
In the district of Limbadi, home to the Mancuso clan, the state is now seeking to win back territory. Authorities have seized illegally purchased property, like this villa belonging to the Mancuso family. Journalist Michele Albanese has been writing for many years about the criminal dealings of the Ndrangheta and the far-reaching tentacles of the mafia clans. He too has a pair of bodyguards constantly at his side, ever since it emerged that the mafia wanted to kill him.
Francesco Mancuso ha avuto 11 figli.
Francesco Mancuso had 11 children, who in turn all had 6 or 7 children of their own. They're all engaged in lucrative activities like cocaine trafficking. They were authorized by the Ndrangheta to import cocaine from South America. That's how the Mancusos won the support of the leading Ndrangheta families and moved into the elite leadership. Their influence has spread to the whole of Italy and the entire world.
He's lived under armed guard for 7 years. His work as a journalist is severely limited, and no one knows when things will change.
You never get used to the loss of your freedom. Driving a car is part of your freedom. Going for a walk alone to think and reflect is another element of freedom.
Anyone who opposes the Ndrangheta in Calabria risks their life. The mafia control entire cities and villages, a regime of terror.
Even though it's difficult, I don't want to stop reporting the stories about my home. I want my people to understand that we could live here in Italy like gods, that we could have really good lives if it weren't for these criminals who thwart all development and progress.
The municipal council in Lombardy has been dissolved 3 times because it was so heavily infiltrated by the mafia. Since the mid-1970s, they've skimmed off government contracts worth millions of euros. With almost every investment made by the state and local authorities and every private business transaction, the Ndrangheta took their cut through extortion and intimidation. While criminals like the Mancusos grew rich, much of the remaining population were left impoverished. Many left the region, especially the young and the well-educated. Vincenzo's hometown of Laureana di Borriello was also controlled by the Mancuso clan. He hopes that the new Maxi Trial will also reveal who murdered his sister. The shock of her brutal death and questions about what happened continue to plague Vincenzo and his wife.
È stata ripresa da una telecamera di videosorveglianza.
A video surveillance camera here in the town filmed a car driving up and down 10 times. It's thought that someone in the car was watching to catch the moment when Maria left the house.
Che controllasse il momento dell'uscita di Maria di casa.
But so far, the trial has not uncovered the identity of the murderer.
È incredibile.
It's unbelievable. It drives you crazy to think that the person who killed Maria or assisted in her murder is still free and walking the streets.
L'omicidio di Maria può camminare ancora liberamente nelle strade. Mi manca tantissimo Maria.
I miss Maria so much. She was the legal witness at my wedding, as I was at hers. I loved Maria deeply. I love her so much.
Seeing my nieces and nephew deprived of their parents, their mother, day by day, and not because of a natural death, but because of the cruelty of another, is agonizing. It pains me deeply. I would like them to have the same life as my children.
That yellow house over there is where Maria lived, and the car drove up and down here 10 times, back and forth.
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
One revelation has already emerged from the trial in Lemezia. A key witness said while he was in prison, he heard that Maria's body was driven over repeatedly with a tractor and then fed to pigs to remove the evidence. He said she was killed because of a dispute over land. The Ndrangheta often disposes of victims' bodies. For the families, it's a double tragedy. There's no closure, and their loved ones can never be laid to rest. We leave southern Italy and travel hundreds of kilometers to meet with a former member of the mafia. Luigi Bonaventura can't appear on camera. He's another key witness at the trial. Information from him has put many criminals behind bars in recent years. His life is in constant danger. He and his family live in hiding. His father and uncle were powerful Ndrangheta bosses in Calabria. When Luigi announced he was leaving the mafia, his father tried to kill him.
As a child, I experienced an extreme amount of violence. It was brutal. Not just physical violence, but also psychological. You're still a child, but they show you how to kill an animal. They force you to slaughter and gut it. Then they force you to eat the raw flesh.
Step by step, he was groomed for life as a Ndrangheta killer.
You smell the stench of blood, the stench of death. And then later, when you're in action, you feel everything. You're intensely aware of all the smells, the ground. All your senses are sharpened, especially while you're committing the murder.
Luigi smuggled cocaine and weapons and committed a number of murders on behalf of his family. At the age of 30, he was made a capo, a powerful regional leader. But in 2005, he threw in the towel, agreeing to tell the authorities what he knew about the mafia. He served 6 years in prison and was then released.
At first, you do everything like in a film, just like you've been taught. It's all precise, planned, ice cold, without emotion. It's just something technical, steps you follow precisely, as though you'd done it 1,000 times. At first, you feel nothing. But then, when you fire the fatal shot, at least this is what happened to me, you realize that at that moment, something inside you changed. Something is different. After I returned home from my first murder, the first murder that I had committed with my own hands, I told my uncle, who was the boss at the time, that everything was okay. He looked satisfied and said, "Sit down, there's a meal waiting for you." And that was the last word on the subject.
On the day after our interview with Luigi, prosecutor Nicola Gratteri questioned him in an online meeting. His family did business with the Mancuso clan, so his testimony is also relevant to the current trial. Both families were heavily involved in drugs and arms trafficking and had contacts in Latin America.
The Ndrangheta specialize in importing cocaine to Europe. They have their own men in Colombia who work there as agents and can get cocaine for a minimum price. Cocaine makes up 70% of the Ndrangheta's activities. They use extortion mainly to stake out and control their territory, not to earn money. The big profits come from drugs, profiteering, and then money laundering and reinvesting money.
Journalist Michele Albanese has watched the rise of various mafia families over many decades. The more successful ones quickly invested their profits from criminal activities in legal businesses.
That quarry over there made the Mancuso clan what it is today. From there, the family supplied construction materials on a grand scale to build the port of Gioia Tauro. It was lucrative and at the same time did a huge favor for the Ndrangheta, who controlled the building of the port.
The power and wealth of many Ndrangheta families increased rapidly. They not only profited from the construction work, they also placed their own people at the port, the largest container terminal in Italy. That allowed them to build up a far bigger business, smuggling cocaine from Latin America. Importing vast amounts of cocaine into territory under their own control soon made the Ndrangheta far more powerful than the Cosa Nostra in neighboring Sicily.
Now they use not only Gioia Tauro, but many other ports too. Spanish and French ports, Antwerp, Rotterdam, Hamburg, Bremerhaven, the Italian ports of Genoa, Livorno, Trieste and La Spezia. These days they send the big consignments of cocaine to wherever they expect controls to be the least strict.
Police specialized in narcotics now conduct daily checks at Gioia Tauro to try to intercept the drugs. There are two main shipping routes out of Latin America that go directly to Gioia Tauro, so the port in Calabria is of strategic importance to the Ndrangheta. 2 million containers arrive here each year. The chance of police or customs officers finding smuggled goods is relatively low, but at times they do get lucky. Gabriele Gaudesi and his team check up to 70 containers a day. Every year they find more cocaine.
The rip-off method is the classic one. That's where bags of drugs are placed on top of legally transported goods, so they can be removed quickly when they arrive at the port. But last year, we uncovered another method, where drugs are hidden amongst the goods, in boxes of bananas, for example. In 2020, we seized a total of 5 tons of cocaine.
Drugs with a street value of 350 million euros. But it's estimated that less than 10% of smuggled drugs are discovered by the authorities. The same is true of all other European ports, where the amount of cocaine being intercepted is also growing year by year. Experts estimate annual sales for the Ndrangheta amount to 55 billion euros.
The Ndrangheta can buy a kilo of cocaine in Latin America for 1,000 euros. They sell it on here for at least 70 or 80 times that. That's a huge profit margin, an impressive return. A recent study put the value of illegal funds held by the Italian mafia in tax havens worldwide at around 3 trillion euros.
Nei paradisi fiscali delle mafie italiane intorno a 3.000 miliardi di euro.
They can literally buy half of Europe.
Comprare mezza Europa. E si comprano azioni.
They invest in shares, buy up important companies. They bribe politicians and officials into working for them. And that means everyone is at risk.
Former mafia member Luigi Bonaventura has brought his oldest son Nemo to meet us. Luigi says neither his mother nor his wife came from mafia families. He says their positive influence helped him break with Ndrangheta.
When our first child was born, I realized that I couldn't teach him the values of the Ndrangheta. The Ndrangheta decides who gets to die, but no one should have that right. I'm fighting for this society. I want my children to be part of this culture.
Luigi Bonaventura knows his decision to switch sides could cost him his life. He's come to terms with that. What he struggles with more is that the Ndrangheta could also take revenge on his family. They live in an undisclosed location and are in constant fear for their lives.
My family has lived a life of hell for 14 years now. Why? Why is my family not under police protection? Why haven't we been given a new identity?
It's all part and parcel of my dad's decision. He definitely made the right decision, and now we have to live with the consequences. But what bothers us and makes us very sad is that we're not getting any kind of help. The same state that made you an offer to work with them then lets you down when you actually start doing it. It's a huge worry for us.
Nemo can't go to university because that would be too dangerous. Experts say informants like Luigi and their families need to be better protected so that more people will be encouraged to work with the authorities. At the trial back in Lemezia, all the top mafia leaders in the province are on trial, an absolute first. That's created hope for some that things could actually change.
Italy has very many Mancuso families. This trial won't solve the problem. I wish it would, but sadly, we need to carry out many more such operations.
But in the town of Laureana di Borriello, local people can already feel that the power of the Mancuso family has waned. Vincenzo Kindamo is working with a local organization to ensure that victims like his sister Maria are not forgotten. He's also volunteering as a teacher for prison inmates. He's teaching natural history. Right now, the lessons are online only.
All ecosystems are linked together. All organisms of a community are linked together and interact.
His students include mafiosi. He wants to provide opportunities for them to leave their life of crime. He also tells them about what happened to his sister and the impact her death has had on his family and on her children.
After Maria's disappearance, a part of me inevitably changed. I was full of anger at these criminals. Now, by teaching, I can somehow give vent to my anger. And not only that, I can bring my anger and my desire for revenge, my desire for justice and truth, and channel it into something good that I want for this country.
More and more people in Calabria are daring to take a stand against the mafia. Vincenzo Kindamo, Michele Albanese, Luigi Bonaventura, and for more than 3 decades, anti-mafia prosecutor Nicola Gratteri. No matter the price, they're willing to risk everything in their fight against the Ndrangheta to create a better future for the next generation.